story begins like so many others. An unknown powerful force divided space and time, leading to an invasion of monsters from another world. Humans managed to survive, and they called this apocalypse the Magic Wave. To balance the universe, humans were given a system of professions that expanded their abilities. They could awaken random starting talents within the system and choose different professions. Such awakened people were called professionals. In order to successfully continue fighting monsters, people created professional academies. There they trained future warriors and trained them on the basis of real events thanks to the system of integration into the game, where students could train in real conditions. After completing all the theoretical courses of the academy, the students were awaiting the momentous day of awakening their talents, as well as their first steps into the copies, which was the name of the dungeons in this world. The academy principal was confident that after so many years of training, they were ready to become professionals. Their future task would be to protect humanity, even if it required sacrificing themselves to do so. After such a loud and enthusiastic speech, it was time to undergo the talent awakening ritual. Our hero, named Lin Ye, was also one of the students who were to undergo the awakening today. He had been looking forward to this day and was now joyfully excited. Talent awakening was crucial for a future professional. Talents were divided into ordinary, rare, legendary, and finally mythical. Although there were rumors about mythical talents, in reality, there had been no confirmed existence of a mythical talent since the awakening of mankind. When it came to professions, swordsmen and mages were the most desired professions, followed by assassins, summoners, and warriors. Priests, on the other hand, were the most disrespected of all professions due to their low healing, poor mobility, and complete lack of attack abilities. The other professions were able to pass a normal copy alone with their powerful equipment and high-quality talent, which was not the case with priests. And in extremely difficult copies, very often mages and summoners would simply replace the role of the priest. That was how the priests who were forced to hide behind the team became a complete useless laughingstock. While our hero was pondering this, he was called over by his childhood friend and asked what profession he wanted to choose. Lin Ye replied that there was no point in thinking about it now, because he would only be able to realize which profession suited him when he awakened his talent. With a disgruntled snort, she said that she had asked it just for fun. Her name was Su Mumu, and like him, she was also a student of the academy. Because of her beauty as well as her personality, all the guys considered her a goddess and wished that she would look in their direction at least once. However, the only one she allowed to treat her well was our hero, for whom she was like a little sister, whom he took care of in every possible way. Naturally, the other guys were very much annoyed by this. They did not understand how such an ordinary guy like him could be friends with such a beautiful girl. In their opinion, he had always deliberately made himself cool, although he was actually a complete loser, and they were very interested to see what kind of talent he would awaken. At the same time, a bright pillar of light fell from the sky. Some guy had awakened a talent called Powerful, which gave a 50% increase in strength skills. The appearance of such a rare talent caused admiration and excitement. This talent was perfect for the power warrior profession, and everyone was sure that he would definitely become the best warrior in this competition. However, right now, this guy was more interested in what talent Lin Ye would receive. He was just as annoyed as the others that Mumu was treating Lin Ye in a special way. Mumu at this time wanted to shout at the guys to stop saying bad things about Lin Ye, but Lin Ye stopped her and told her to ignore them. The girl grudgingly asked why he never paid attention to other people's opinions. The reason for this was quite simple. He was always sure that he would become the strongest, and so there was no need to worry about such trifles. Besides, this was the only way he could avenge his past and the death of his parents and make sure it wouldn't happen again in the future. After the death of his parents, he had been rescued by Mumu's family, and so now he felt it was his duty to protect them. Just at this time, it was his turn for a talent awakening. After stroking the embarrassed Mumu's head, he went to the magic circle where his fate was to be determined. As soon as he stepped on the circle, it shone with a bright light. Already in the next moment, our hero fell into an unknown dimension. In the middle of this space shone a bright golden light, which was supposed to be the place of awakening of talent. As soon as Lin Ye touched the bright light, two dragons instantly burst out from there. A light dragon and a dark dragon. They possessed him, causing his body to glow with a bright light. A system window appeared in front of Lin Ye, informing him that he had obtained a mythical talent called Heaven and Earth Reversal. The system also immediately asked if our hero wished to hide it. The first level of this skill could cancel and enhance all the skills imposed on him. If upgraded to a higher level, however, it could change the very nature of skills. At the moment, the current reinforcement effect reduced mana consumption by 10%, and the transformation effect changes buffs to debuffs, and vice versa. In simple terms, he could freely undo any effects applied to him. If one skillfully used this skill, then theoretically, enemies would never be able to defeat him. However, the problem was still common physical attacks, as well as the use of the priest's healing skills on him, which could break his invulnerability and directly harm him. This was the reason why this talent needed to be hidden. After all, no one had to know about his strengths and weaknesses. Upon returning to the real world, the system informed everyone that our hero's talent was hidden. Linya had not even told this yet to the excited Momo, who was eagerly waiting for this moment. The others, however, thought that he had hidden his talent because he was worthless, and he was ashamed of it. However, Linya didn't even think of paying attention to their words. It was only to his advantage that they thought of him as a weakling. At the same time, it was time for Mumu to awaken his talent. Linya, on the other hand, had to choose his profession through the goddess statue standing nearby. All he had to do was pick a card with the profession he wished to obtain. Based on the strength of his talent, our hero was certain that his talent was a divine skill. In order to maximize its power, he had to be sure to compensate for his weaknesses. That was why he chose a card with the profession of a priest. Even the unprejudiced statue asked him to confirm his choice of profession once more, as he was currently the only student in this session who had decided to become a priest. However, this was no mistake, and Linya confidently confirmed his choice. The very next moment, a golden light burst out from the card and enveloped him. The change of profession was officially complete. Our hero received a cool priest cloak, as well as a staff in the shape of a cross. In addition, he now had a status window that displayed all of his characteristics. With the choice of profession, he got 2 skills: Healing Art, as well as the Clarity Art, which restored the mana of the target. In addition, Linya currently possessed the Heaven and Earth Reversal talent, which turned healing into an attack. As he expected, the skill was interpreted as reducing health rather than dealing damage. It was because of this that the target's defense and armor were not hindered, which was equivalent to true damage. The total amount of damage dealt in this way was slightly less than the initial damage from mage skills, but if the enemy had magic resistance, the advantage remained with our hero. His second skill was the Clarity Art. With its help, he could create an imperceptible mana drain, which could prevent mages from using their main spells at a crucial moment. With this strategy, the approach to combat was pretty clear to our hero. The only thing he had to be wary of were the healing skills or buffs of his allies, for with his talent, it could do more harm than good. Seeing that Lin Ye had chosen the profession of a priest, the other students began to scoff, for they were sure that he just wanted to hide behind the backs of his teammates. At the same time, Mumu awakened a legendary talent called Bionic Tears, thanks to which she could summon spirits from another world to fight for her. Naturally, this caused even more admiration in her direction, while our hero became even more hated. When it came time to choose a profession, she chose the profession of a mage. It was a profession that really suited her, according to the people around her. A mage with a legendary talent definitely had the potential to become a full-fledged member of the professional alliance. The principal of the academy, however, was interested in something else entirely. It had been a long time since any of the students had chosen the profession of a priest. However, from the mood of the guy who had chosen it today, one could not tell that he had done so reluctantly. Finished with his choice of profession, Mumu excitedly immediately ran up to Lin Ye and offered to go to copies together. However, he refused, explaining that he had other plans. His words shocked the girl because she could not believe that he was going to go through the challenge alone. The very next moment, the system announced the start of the novice competition and called for students who had completed the talent awakening and profession shift to form teams. Right after that, some confident guy approached our hero and asked him to talk to Mumu for him and offer her to join his team. As a reward, he promised to take him along in case he followed his orders. Lin Ye was completely uninterested in this, so he refused. Suddenly, the academy principal appeared near them and reminded them that teamwork was needed in the competition and that even with enough talent, it was very difficult to face the hordes of demons alone. He suggested that our hero put aside his differences and accept the offer. However, Lin Ye had a completely different opinion on the matter. He believed that going through the competition alone gave more experience and rewards. This was indeed true. However, according to the principal's opinion, soloing with the priest profession was impossible. He again advised Lin Ye to think carefully because after all, what happened in the competition affected reality. If he encountered danger, he could indeed die. However, even after saying that, our hero did not change his mind. He needed to raise his level as quickly as possible because until his strength was powerful enough, he wouldn't be able to reveal his divine talent in front of others. The academy principal didn't know this, so naturally he didn't understand why he was so confident. As soon as Lin Ye approached the teleport, the system warned that it was dangerous to go through the newbie challenge alone, and then asked if he was really confident in his choice. But even here, our hero did not change his mind. It was from this moment that his becoming the strongest professional of this world began. After passing through the portal, Lin Ye entered the competition area, which was called Forest of Wolves. The system recommended newcomers to take this challenge in a team, as the difficulty of the challenge was determined to be high. The location itself was a forest with packs of bloodthirsty wolves. Even in our hero's opinion, the Forest of Wolves was quite a difficult level for students who were taking part in the challenge for the first time. Going through it in the cooperative, it was possible to avoid getting lost. However, getting a B rating was already considered a good result. Around the middle of this area, there was a healing spring where all professionals could restore their health. Because of it, the priest's status and usefulness in this location was reduced even more. However, there were also many dangers in the challenge. Very often, negligence in not eliminating wolves along the way or going deeper into the forbidden zone led to fatalities. However, since our hero had a divine talent, he simply couldn't be satisfied with an ordinary ranking. The legendary Forbidden Lands were Lin Ye's target, because only there would he be able to raise his level as quickly as possible. As soon as our hero went deeper into the forest, he immediately encountered several wolves. They were quite formidable in appearance, but they were only level 1 and had only 3 abilities: Bite, Bleeding, and Howl. Upon seeing our hero, they instantly rushed towards him. Lin Ye immediately activated his ability, and in the next instant, he used healing on the wolf. However, as you might have already guessed, this was no ordinary healing. It was an inverted healing, and it dealt 50 points of true damage to the wild wolf. The first wolf was defeated. However, 2 others immediately rushed at our hero. One of the wolves managed to get close to Lin Ye and bite him. But as it turned out, it was of no use at all, and even on the contrary, his attack added to our hero's health. This was the reverse effect. The wolf's skill was also inverted. Our hero was not going to stop there and applied the reverse mode of the clarity skill, which was the imprisonment technique. In an instant, the wolf was bound in chains and its mana began to decrease. This technique depleted the opponent's mana, causing the target to remain unable to move. It was quite effective against low-level mobs with low mana reserves. With the second one finished, the last opponent remained. After dodging the attack, Lin Ye once again used the healing technique, which, just like last time, destroyed the wolf the first time. One mob gave 10 experience points, so if our hero destroyed all the mobs in this area, he would be able to gain level 4. His real target, however, was the last hidden boss, and even with a 1-level difference, he wasn't a problem. The wolves continued to attack while Lin Ye continued to destroy them one by one. He had thoroughly prepared for this day, and he had every chance of winning. Turning off the reverse mode, Lin Ye used the clarity art technique to recover. He was rewarded for reaching the second level with 2 free attributes, and immediately put all the points into intelligence without a second thought. The reason for this choice was because his ability was healing without taking damage and constantly recovering mana. At the same time, the academy principal who was watching the trial was shocked. This area was forbidden to explore during school, yet Lin Ye had not only entered it, but also intended to fight a hidden 5-level boss. It was almost impossible to do it alone. If that one wasn't purposefully seeking death, he probably had a hidden talent of at least legendary level. Well, since he wasn't going to reveal it just yet, the principal decided to take a closer look at other worthy candidates first. Some unknown man standing next to the principal laughed and said that he was betting that this desperate guy would break the record. Though he had heard from the principal that there was one girl worthy of being a candidate, but in his opinion, she lacked fire. By that girl, they meant Mumu. She and her group continued to advance, and soon they came across a wolf. Mumu immediately used the frost flash technique and instantly killed the wolf. However, the problem was that 2 more opponents suddenly appeared. Mumu immediately grabbed her companions and rushed to run away. However, thinking that this way her goddess status would be completely violated, she decided to stay and give battle. She still had a trump card up her sleeve, so she activated her Bionic Tears talent without a second thought. Her exact copy appeared beside her, and together they attacked the wolves with Frost Flash. As expected, she was able to win, and now they were safe. At the same time, Lin Ye continued to kill wolves and was soon able to reach the 3rd level. His level up rate was even faster than he had planned. Reaching the 4th level was very close. Soon he was able to find his target, namely the dark descendant of the Wolf King, which was that 5-level boss. Its characteristics were much higher than the other wolves. Upon seeing any creature, he would ruthlessly attack it, while the other wolves throughout the forest were his subordinates who obediently followed his orders. For newcomers, he was considered a forbidden monster, for it was because of him that countless gifted students were killed. However, even knowing this, our hero was not going to back down. He noticed that most of the wolves were almost always near their king, but even they sometimes had to leave to go about their business. It was during these times that Lin Ye would find them one by one and mercilessly destroy them. He continued to stick to his tactic, destroy all the weak mobs and then go for the final boss. While the king's number of subordinates was decreasing, Lin Ye's level was increasing. After a while, he managed to reach the 4th level. It was about time to destroy the final boss. After noticing his subordinates missing and sensing that something was wrong, the wolf boss turned around, but it was too late. Lin Ye was already here to deal with him. The Wolf King really had a terrifying amount of health and high attack stats that exceeded that of ordinary wild wolves 50 times. If some newcomer were to face him, he would be killed with just one blow. However, for our hero, his attacks were nothing. Moreover, they were healing him as well as strengthening his muscles and bones. It was a true divine talent. He could deal with such a strong opponent just by standing still. After a while, the wolf was exhausted, and Lin Ye's healing technique had already been recharged by then, and in the next instant, he attacked the wolf. However, the latter wasn't that easy either. Even after losing some of his health, he attacked our hero with a basic claw attack, and this was already dangerous. It was very much like the wolf had realized everything. He also used the rage skill. However, even so, it was impossible for him to win. If he had his pack with him right now, Lin Ye might have had a hard time. However, since he was only alone here, he didn't stand a chance. A notification appeared in front of our hero that the recharge of the healing skill had been completed. Just a moment later, a huge bright beam of light fell from the sky, which fell directly on the Wolf King. He had no chance of surviving after such a thing. For killing him, Lin Ye received 1,000 experience points, thus raising his level to 5th. He also received an entry-level bronze chest, but it still wasn't all rewards. For completing all the hidden achievements, killing the final boss Dark Wolf King without using any destructive skills, and killing 30 wild wolves, Lin Ye's score for completing this location was upgraded to SSS level. An additional reward he also received was an advanced level silver chest. Our hero was satisfied with the result. If his reverse healing was considered an attack skill, he might not have been able to achieve such a grade. At the same time, the information that some student had completed the test and received an SSS grade appeared in front of everyone watching. Everyone present was shocked, for they had just witnessed a true historical event. The Academy principal knew that it was only possible to achieve such a result by completing all the hidden achievements. From his data, only Lin Ye dared to enter the Forbidden Lands. The second condition, however, was to pass the level without taking damage. The unknown man couldn't believe that it was possible to do this alone. Mumu was also surprised. She was curious to know who this guy was. At the same time, our hero decided to finally open the silver treasure chest. He obtained a divine healing skill book, 5 attribute points, and a silver quality equipment, a shadow dagger. The first thing Lin Ye decided to do was to test the dagger. As it turned out, it increased the wielder's attack power by 50, increased armor penetration by 10, and also had a 5% chance of causing the opponent to bleed. Next was the divine healing skill, which blessed all allies within a 10-meter radius with holy power and restored their health. Reverse divine healing was much more useful. It allowed you to curse all enemies within a 10-meter radius with evil energy. Enemies in this area lost their health and also received the effect of bleeding. Although this skill had a rather long cooldown and high mana costs, according to Lin Ye, it was not a problem in the early stages. A skill with such high damage was already the strongest skill in the early stage. Furthermore, when combined with the clarity skill, the recharge time became negligible, creating an endless cycle. With such skills, he had already surpassed even the strongest mage class. He decided to sell the dagger because he could no longer afford to spend the money of his aunt and uncle, who had already done so much for him. The 5 free attribute points were a real jackpot because it was very difficult to get them. Aside from the 2 points that came naturally after leveling up, the only way to get them was to perform special tasks in the secret realm circles or open hidden chests. All the extra attribute points Lin Ye had obtained had decided to add to his intelligence. From this day onwards, he decided to become the ultimate mage and the most destructive, catastrophic priest. As soon as the portal shone with a bright light, everyone present fidgeted excitedly. Since everyone had already passed the challenge, they assumed that only the person who had obtained the SSS rank should remain inside. However, to everyone's surprise, Lin Ye came out of there. No one could believe that our hero was able to obtain such a rank, so they began to assume that the student who obtained such a rank was still inside. Only Mumu was happy about Lin Ye's appearance, and only she believed that he could obtain such a rank. However, according to those around her, she was overestimating him, because a priest alone would never be able to achieve such a thing. However, their mockery did not last long. As soon as Lin Ye took out a dagger and asked if anyone would like to buy it, they closed their mouths. Since the dagger was a silver grade weapon, the disciples eagerly started haggling for it, constantly raising the price. Eventually, the price reached 50,000, which was an excellent price for a premium weapon. Our hero was about to sell it for that price, but the very next moment, some woman offered $100,000. This was a huge amount of money, as the total income of an average family was 1,000 coins a year. In Lin Ye's opinion, although it was a lot, it was quite a normal price for such a first-class dagger. As soon as the auction ended, our hero was immediately surrounded by a group of his classmates. They were very curious to know what his level was and how he was able to get such a result. The academy principal as well as the unknown man were still puzzled by what had happened. No one had ever managed to pull this off before, so they assumed that our hero had found a team after entering the dungeon. It was impossible to pass the challenge alone without taking damage, even for professionals at the top of the entry level. However, not everyone was happy about our hero's achievements. In the opinion of his haters, he had cheated, as no priest would ever be able to achieve such a thing. Soon, it was time for the results to be announced. Starting today, they were no longer ordinary students. They were now trainees with extraordinary abilities. In addition, in 30 days, they were to pass the most important milestones of their lives. The professional test. It was its results that would determine whether they would remain ordinary low-level adventurers or become heroes who would fight against demons. The director also advised that throughout this month, they should visit the initial dungeons more actively and strive to reach at least level 10. The prerequisite for this challenge was teamwork. Lin Ye already knew who his partner would be. Despite the eternally cold image Mumu, she was the one who needed care the most. Although she had awakened a powerful talent, there were still many dangers that he had to protect her from. He could no longer allow that tragedy to happen again. And since they still needed to practice a lot, Lin Ye suggested that Mumu skip dinner and go to a more dangerous dungeon. This time, they arrived at the entrance of the dungeon, which had a choice of difficulty. The system recommended going through it in a group of 5 to 10 people. The dungeon, called the Stone Cave, was filled with countless poisonous scorpions. The main task for its completion was to destroy the King of Scorpions, who would go into a state of berserk if he was not defeated within a certain time. Our hero, without hesitation, chose the most difficult level, because the higher the difficulty was, the higher were the monsters. And accordingly, the rewards were also more valuable. Usually, the initial dungeons had basically 3 levels of difficulty, but this dungeon had only 2. Seeing the difficulty that Lin Ye had chosen, Mumu was worried. She trusted our hero, however. She was afraid that she could prevent him from passing the dungeon without taking damage. Lin Ye assured that it wasn't a problem because this dungeon had a skip function that allowed them to avoid monsters. After analyzing the available data, our hero concluded that the monsters in this dungeon had been fixed, and skipping them was quite possible. Mumu was delighted by Lin Ye's deductive abilities. In fact, she had always known that he was hiding his true strength, and while his classmates were fooling around, he was studying hard. Everyone thought he was a fool, and only she knew that it was far from true. She firmly believed that he would be the hero who would save the world. Soon they found themselves in the stone dungeon. Mumu immediately took notice of its beauty. While Lin Ye warned her that this dungeon was more dangerous than the previous ones, suddenly the system informed her that due to insufficient participants, their team would be forcibly added to the other teams. This was not good news for our hero, because now their problem was not only monsters but also competitors. Suddenly, there was an explosion behind them. Some guy flew off and hit the wall. He was the same classmate who had mocked Lin Ye. He too had come here to level up. However, the dungeon was much more dangerous than he had imagined. When he looked around, he saw Lin Ye and Mumu walking towards them. He immediately rushed towards them and started asking for help. However, our hero wasn't going to help such trash. Leaving the guys to continue fighting the scorpions, he and Mumu went on their way together. Before fighting the Scorpion King, Lin Ye warned Mumu that scorpions were very afraid of water, also that they had a small attack range. She had to follow him, do everything he told her. Only then could he guarantee that she wouldn't be poisoned by one. Rushing at the huge monster, he also warned that they were very sensitive to sound. Lin Ye was able to kill the monster with his one attack. Mumu was amazed at such strength, but our hero ordered to keep it a secret. Their primary task now was to take a unique route, to avoid the attention of the monsters. In the dungeon, they would go straight to the pond. Lin Ye jumped into the water without a second thought. After some hesitation, Mumu followed him. Once they got to the small island in the middle of the pond, Lin Ye picked up a rock. It was the one he was going to use to attract the attention of the monsters. And no, not only the huge army of scorpions, but also their leader. Just when the scorpions heard this sound, they immediately abandoned the other hunters and rushed towards the pond. Also, this sound did not leave the poisonous Scorpion King unaffected either. Lin Ye waited impatiently for it to appear, but it only hissed furiously and did not approach. Well, if he didn't approach himself, then our hero was going to do it himself. Creating a powerful spell, he attacked the scorpions. He began to continuously receive system notifications about killing monsters and gaining experience points. The guys watching all of this were shocked at how much damage the priest had. Mumu was also not going to stay away and created a copy of herself. Together with him, she started raining ice on the scorpions. As a result, she was able to raise her level to 4th and received 1 attribute point. But that wasn't the end of it. Now was the time to fight the poisonous Scorpion King. Since all of his subordinates were dead, the king had no choice but to overcome his innate fear of water and rush towards our heroes. Mumu attacked him with her ice spell, but was only able to deal 10 points of damage. She was amazed at such a huge defense, but Lin Ye assured that she had nothing to worry about. After all, he already knew where the Scorpion King's core was located. All they had to do was hit it. The monster continued to attack. Our hero had nothing to do but to dodge his attacks together with Mumu, shooting spells at him. But even his spells only did 150 damage. Once the Scorpion King stood to attack, our heroes had a chance to win. Lin Ye shouted to Mumu to attack with an ice spell. The poison Scorpion King only raised its body with this attack, thus revealing its weak spot on its belly. Taking advantage of this, our hero had no problem defeating it with just 1 attack. Since they passed the dungeon without damage, the rating was raised to SSS level. They were rewarded with 1 golden treasure chest as well as 5 free stat points. Thanks to killing the Scorpion King and gaining experience, Lin Ye immediately reached the 6th level. Suddenly, the voices of the guys who were watching were heard. They immediately started apologizing and asking to take them under their wing. However, all our hero wanted them to do was to keep their mouths shut and not tell anyone about what they had seen today. As they left the dungeon, he warned them that if they didn't, they would face the consequences. After moving into the teleportation space, Lin Ye offered to open the gold chest. Even compared to the silver chest he had gotten last time, the gold chest was considered much more valuable. The first item that fell out of the chest was a silver grade 2-handed hunting sword that increased attack by 200 units. Next was a gold grade ice boots that increased dexterity and speed by 30%, and also had the passive effect of ghostly footsteps. The gold grade poison bubble skill book allowed one to store mana in a poison ball, which dealt damage when it collided with an enemy. And finally, the silver class emerald ring. It reduced the cooldown time of all skills by 10%, and could also stack with the effects of other equipment. On top of all that, they also received 5 points of free attributes. Mumu was very surprised by the items that dropped out. While in our hero's opinion, the most valuable item was an emerald ring that reduced the time it took to recharge skills. At the auction, you could get about 1 million coins for it. Since the poison bubble book was for mages, Lin Ye gave it to Mumu without a second thought. Unfortunately, Mumu couldn't use it since she had already chosen the ice attribute. However, to her surprise, the system window reported that the hidden skill, Master of the 5 Elements, had been activated. An ordinary mage could only use 1 element, while she could now use as many as 5. Even Lin Ye was a bit surprised and advised her to study her new skill better. After all, once she fully mastered it, it would be her trump card up her sleeve. On the way to the portal, Mumu asked our hero about how he would use the 5 attribute points he had received, to which he replied that his methods would not be to her liking. At the exit of the dungeon, a group of the same people were waiting for them. Seeing Mumu, most of the guys, as I expected, came in delight. However, when they saw our hero nearby, they started discussing him again. Suddenly, someone's fancy car drove up to the dungeon, silencing everyone. And getting out of the car, its owner said that Mumu was as beautiful as they said she was. Mumu immediately grabbed Lin Ye and said that they should leave. She didn't like guys like that, and didn't want to be here anymore. However, the guy had no intention of giving up and asked her to listen to him. Introducing himself as the heir of the Huang Company, Huang Xiaofeng offered to take a walk with him. From the other students' conversations, it was clear that he had a bad reputation. Hiding behind Lin Ye's back, Mumu replied that she already had a boyfriend. Xiaofeng came to be puzzled, because compared to her, the guy seemed too ordinary. This infuriated Xiaofeng so much that he tried to push our hero away. However, he was defeated. Having gotten a reason to fight, he threw himself at Lin Ye. But he lost the moment he decided to use the skill on our hero. For as soon as Lin Ye activated the reverse looting technique, he turned Xiaofeng's attack against himself. After receiving a blow from himself, he fell to his knees and groaned. He irritably asked our hero what his class was. Lin Ye said with an innocent face that he had done nothing to him and that everyone could confirm it. He was a priest, which meant he couldn't do damage to anyone. Deciding that the guy was just lucky, Xiaofeng rushed forward to attack again. However, the very next moment, he realized that he couldn't move. As it turned out, in addition to stealing damage, the looting technique dealt additional damage. Even though he had only used half of his strength, the result was excellent. Xiaofeng still hadn't learned his lesson and started to threaten Lin Ye. Fortunately, he had a rather smart friend who immediately realized that our hero had a hidden talent. He immediately apologized to Lin Ye for his friend's pranks. After pacifying his rowdy friend who tried to resist, he advised Lin Ye to be more careful in the future. Handing him a card with money as compensation, he said that he hoped he wouldn't show his friend's face for the next month. However, Lin Ye refused without a second thought. He was curious to see what he would try to do to him next time. Besides, it would surely be a great opportunity to see what he was capable of now. After a while, there was a shocking news on the forum about a speedrun strategy for a difficult level cave that allowed you to pass it in 1 minute and 30 seconds. A complete guide to reach SSS rank cost 5,000 Alliance coins. In addition to the strategy, an emerald ring and a hunting sword were also for sale on the forum. Almost immediately, everyone started discussing the news vigorously. Some were ready to sell their house just to get the ring. Others thought that the guide was a fake, as it was simply impossible to speedrun dungeons of this level. Mumu, on the other hand, was concerned about the high price for some kind of guide. However, our hero did not doubt his decision, because he knew that no one could refuse additional free attribute points. At first, professionals really doubted the correctness of the guide. However, interest soon took over, and they decided to buy and check it out. After buying the walkthrough, it turned out that it did turn out to be true. And as soon as on the forum appeared positive feedback from players who had already bought the guide, the rest of the players also rushed to buy it. More and more players successfully passed the dungeon with the guide, thereby advertising it more and more. As a result, even more players bought it. In a short period of time, his post rose to the top of the trends. Absolutely everyone who bought it was praising its creator. Mumu was very shocked at the amount of money Lin Ye had gotten in such a short time. It had gone so viral that the information about it had even reached the heads of large companies. They were very curious to know who the author of this guide was, but the exact information about his identity was not available. It was only known that it was a student of Jiang Academy. Smiling, the unknown man said about how he had heard that something interesting had happened there this year. At the same time, someone wanted to buy the sword that Lin Ye had put up for sale. The buyer immediately agreed to the price of 8,000 coins and wished to receive it as soon as possible. As a result, they agreed to meet in a few minutes outside the school dungeon. Mumu was delighted at how much our hero was able to earn. However, Lin Ye himself had been counting on this from the beginning. Right now, he was more interested in the speed of his level up. They needed to clear more dungeons as soon as possible. After all, silver rank weapons, although they were the best early on, they would still have to be replaced eventually. However, even with the maximum quality weapons without combat training, you were just fodder in the trials. One had to improve their combat skills as well. Mumu remembered that Lin Ye wanted to become stronger as quickly as possible and therefore didn't understand why he was wasting time strategizing and trying hard to earn money. A smile appeared on our hero's face. The reason was very simple. This money was to protect the people he cared about. In his previous life, he had no parents and had never experienced the warmth of a family. Yes, he had come into this world. Things had changed. He was lucky. He had loving parents who loved him and protected him at the cost of their lives. However, after his parents died, his relatives only wished for his death. All they wanted was to take the legacy his parents had left him. Everyone thought he was useless trash and no one wanted to take him in. Luckily, he was taken in by Mumu's family. They took care of him and even helped him get his legacy back, not wanting to get anything in return. His relatives who tried to take away his legacy were brought to court and received the punishment they deserved. All of this was only because of the care of his aunt and uncle. That's why he wanted to protect them and make sure they didn't need anything. As soon as our hero approached the school dungeon, a small, cute girl in armor approached him. Introducing herself as Ji, she asked, "Was he the one selling the hunting sword?" Lin Ye didn't immediately believe that she was the buyer. After all, her nickname on the forum was Muscular Man Bro. However, after some time of persuasion, the girl managed to convince our hero. Lin Ye suggested that perhaps she might have just put all her points into strength. Before concluding the deal, our hero advised her to check the goods, because after the final sale, there could not be any refunds. Taking out a sword from his inventory, he threw it directly to Ji. As it turned out, her physical strength really matched her forum nickname. She could freely swing even such a huge sword. Ji was satisfied with the quality of the sword and even asked, was he really selling it for only 8,000 since the price in the market for the same sword was about twice as much? However, her assessment was completely wrong. And as it turned out, the reason for this was that she was not good at math and did not know how to count money. Lin Ye advised her to check the market price more carefully next time before buying something. This was roughly how their transaction ended. After saying goodbye, our hero was about to leave, but the golden light that suddenly hit him stopped him. The system immediately informed him that he had received the Goddess of Luck enhancement. Now every time he cleared the dungeon, he could improve the chest by 1 level. This was this girl's talent. She really wanted to join his group, so she asked him to bring her along. Lin Ye was really surprised, because the talent of increasing luck was even rarer than some legendary rank talents, and considering that it could also improve, its strategic value was priceless. Even a person with a bad talent could open legendary or even divine chests under the influence of this buff. Our hero immediately asked if she had told anyone else about her talent, to which he received a negative answer. But this talent also had limitations. It could only be used 3 times a week and only to one person. Lin Ye immediately warned Ji, telling her not to tell anyone about her talent. It had an incredible, immense value, which would surely attract the attention of professionals who would want to use it. They wouldn't hesitate to use any dirty methods to get her talent. Going to the professional alliance was not an option either, because although it was a large-scale organization, even within it there were many factions with complicated relationships, conflicts between which also often ended in wars and killings. And since she had nowhere else to go, our hero agreed to take her into his team. Lin Ye, this cooperation was to his advantage. He could not only help her survive in the cruel world of professionals, but also benefit himself. Jai was incredibly happy, because before this, no one wanted to take her on as a teammate. Lin Ye understood the real reason for this, for few people would believe that one could wield a sword well with such a frail physique. After a while they met Mumu, who our hero wanted to introduce Ji to. Their acquaintance went very well. Ji never ceased to admire Mumu's beauty. Mumu, on the other hand, was worried that Lin Ye might have his own hidden reasons for taking such a cutie to his team. However, she didn't have to worry about it, because all he wanted to do right now was to clear another dungeon as quickly as possible. It was called the Nightmare-level Goblin Dungeon. Since it was very dangerous, Lin Ye decided to go there first and check everything out. Only by making the guide and going through the dungeon perfectly could they all get free attribute points. The girls were shocked, because the Nightmare level was the highest difficulty level in beginner dungeons. Even though there were very generous rewards, not many people risked going through it. Mumu immediately started to discourage our hero, because in her opinion, he was heading for certain death. Lin Ye tried to explain that he would be fine, but his arguments did not work on Mumu, and she continued to stand on the fact that even for him it was too dangerous. Ji, realizing that she was better off leaving them alone, ran off on her own. After a while, our hero still managed to convince Mumu that he would be okay. She agreed, but with difficulty, and promised that if he did not keep his promise, she would tell parents. Lin Ye didn't expect her to be so against it. But even so, he managed to convince her quite easily. He was going to make time for a solo run for that night. Suddenly, there was information on the forum, as well as some guy's picture. According to the author, he had found the strongest newbie who was going through the dungeon alone. This news caused a heated discussion. Someone thought it was a fake. Someone believed, but no one really knew who was that newbie. At the same time, Mumu was also browsing the forum. Lin Ye realized that she might have realized something, so he made the decision to just take away her phone. After a while, their family got together to have dinner. Mumu's parents were very happy and praised them for their hard work. Although Mumu's father did not say so directly, he hinted that our hero should be more careful, no matter how strong he was. After asking his uncle a little bit, Lin Ye was able to figure out what Mumu had complained to him. His aunt and uncle made it clear that they had no intention of interfering in his affairs, but they would also be happy if he valued his life more. In their opinion, a healthy and stable life was best. Our hero understood their worries and thus assured that he wouldn't do anything that was above his ability. Holding out a card to Lin Ye, his uncle said that he could always count on the fact that there was support waiting for him at home. Our hero immediately refused, but seeing how his uncle and aunt were worried about him, he still decided to accept their kindness. He was very grateful to them. They freely accepted him into their home and gave him love. This time he was going to treasure the life he had, which had not come easy to him at all. It was for their sake that he was going to become stronger. He wasn't going to let that tragedy happen again. And the first test on his way was the Nightmare Dungeon. At the same time, from Huang Xiaofeng's family mansion, Xiaofeng could be heard shouting angrily, thinking that Qihang had betrayed him. Qihang did not think so, for his true intentions were to save him. Without his help, Xiaofeng would probably be lying in the hospital by now. However, his words were still unconvincing to Xiaofeng, for he still believed that he had only hindered him. His wounds from the battle with Lin Ye were still making themselves felt, so leaving Xiaofeng to rest, Qihang headed towards the exit. Xiaofeng was a complete trash. Throwing a glass after Qihang, he continued to blame him for his shame. However, Qihang was not going to endlessly tolerate the antics of his brother, who thought he could do anything just because he was the heir. He was even beginning to regret agreeing to his father's request to take care of him. Besides, he had a trump card up his sleeve. With a mocking smile, Chi-hung said that he suddenly remembered that he didn't have a mother. Although the mother thing was unnecessary, but this strategy worked. As Chi-hang left the room to the furious shouts of Xiaofeng, Chi-hang said to himself that he didn't realize who he was messing with. This time it was more serious. Although this guy was an unknown beginner, but he was able to unnoticeably seriously wound him without even using a single active skill. In addition, there were rumors that he was soloing the dungeons. In addition, at about the same time, there was another rising star who sold tutorials on passing dungeons, as well as various high-level artifacts. Most likely, these two individuals were the same person. And if his guesses were correct, then there was no way Xiaofeng could mess with this person. However, there was no limit to Xiaofeng's stupidity. As soon as Chi-hung left, he immediately called his friends. He wanted them to help him deal with someone, and even spared no money for weapons and equipment. He couldn't wait to teach Lin Ye, who'd humiliated him in front of everyone. He needed to understand his place, and for that, Xiaofeng was ready to do anything. At the same time, Lin Ye entered the Goblin Dungeon and found himself on the first layer of the Goblin Dungeon in the Misty Forest. According to the information from the system window, this dungeon was divided into 5 layers, each of which was swarming with a huge number of goblins, whose strength and numbers increased with each layer. Lin Ye knew very well that this dungeon was one of the most difficult dungeons at this stage, and even the awakened with the strongest talents did not want to go through it. However, he felt that it was worth the risk, because after clearing it completely, he could get a gold-level chest, and with the blessing of the luck buff, he could open a platinum-level chest. With one sweep, he could easily get 10 to 15 points of attributes, not counting the other valuable items. This was a very generous reward. But for such valuable loot, he had to fight with not the weakest opponents, namely the goblin soldiers. But even they didn't scare Lin Ye at all. Full of confidence, he wanted to finally try out his new powers to the fullest. His main goal was to test his newly optimized method of collecting monsters and killing them quickly. To pass the dungeon with an SSS rating, he not only needed to kill the secret boss, but also kill all the monsters without using any special items. Apart from that, there were 2 other important conditions. 1, he had to clear each layer in no longer than 10 minutes. Second, he had to kill the secret boss, the Goblin King, during the battle with the rest of the goblins. Next, our Lin Ye proceeded to execute his plan. Measuring time at every interval along the way, he gathered all the goblins together. It took him 30 seconds. It took him 2 minutes and 5 seconds to meet the captain of the first layer goblins. Finally, at 3 minutes and 59 seconds, he managed to bring all the goblins to the right place. It was there that he was going to carry out the last part of the plan, and destroy them all with a single attack. Using such a simple but effective strategy, Lin Ye managed to clear all 4 layers of the dungeon without much difficulty. Now, he was waiting for the most difficult part of the test of this dungeon, the battle with the secret boss. Once on the 5th layer, our hero immediately found himself in front of the Goblin King, who was the hidden boss. However, the Goblin King was not too welcoming and was furious that Lin Ye dared to intrude on his territory. However, our hero didn't care about that at all. He was primarily focused on assessing the situation. It was strange that he was immediately in front of the boss. In addition, he did not see the other goblins. The Goblin King quickly got tired of being ignored and immediately used a large-scale attack that caused an earthquake and cracks. He had great strength and strong muscles, which made up for his slowness. And carrying a gold-level spear with a huge attack range, he was an opponent who had almost no disadvantages. And at this moment, he rushed at our hero, who was still a beginner. However, Lin Ye was as cold-blooded as ever. Even in this short time, he was able to come up with a plan of action. And the first thing he did was reverse the earthquake crack's impact damage and Ranger Airwave. Thanks to that, he was able to add 2,000 health to his health. The Goblin King was perplexed by what had happened. Lin Ye did not waste time attacking him with his reverse skill, and was able to take away 200 points. For the Goblin King, it was not a critical attack, but it really pissed him off. With a furious roar, he threw his golden spear covered with magic at our hero. He used one of his strongest dragon spear skills, but Lin Ye didn't even think of dodging. On the contrary, he wanted this attack to catch up with him. And no, he wasn't a masochist. It was because of his skill that allowed him to turn damage into healing and vice versa. It didn't take the Goblin King long to realize that his skills weren't effective on the guy in front of him. But even so, he still had plenty of trump cards left. And the first thing he did was activate the Berserk mode. He had already realized Lin Ye's weakness and began to summon his soldiers. Lin Ye was impressed by the Goblin King's cleverness and recognized that he wasn't that easy to deal with. But even now was not the time to use his ultimate skill yet. Lin Ye thought he had everything under control for now, but that was only until the Goblin King ordered his subordinates to attack him without using skills. Since the skills didn't work on him, the Goblin King was going to unleash hundreds of normal attacks on our hero. This time, Lin Ye was facing a really impressive force. Would he be able to withstand it? And now, the moment when everything was about to be decided, a huge army of goblins rushed towards our hero. Using the reversal of heaven and earth, Lin Ye was able to dodge all the attacks without much difficulty. With his current level, it was more like a game to him. However, as expected, it didn't end there. The Goblin King's army also had some brave archers. Most of the arrows they fired into the floor, but 2 of them still managed to wound Lin Ye, removing a total of 400 points of health. But for our hero, it was not a problem at all, because first of all, he was a priest, and as we know, healing was his specialty. By applying the healing skill, Lin Ye was able to recover to his previous state in a few seconds, and there was no trace of the wounds on his shoulder. The Goblin King was furious, because even that was useless, and his plan in which he was going to crush the boy with a numerical advantage cracked at the seams. However, in the opinion of our hero, the fact that he called his subordinates and ordered them to attack him in a crowd was for his benefit. After all, this way he could deal with them all in one attack and fulfill the condition for obtaining the highest rank. In the very next instant, Lin Ye's reverse attack had already pierced through a huge number of goblins. This large-scale attack was indeed effective. Lin Ye didn't stop there. Jumping into the air, he suddenly attacked the unsuspecting Goblin King. This attack once again angered the Goblin King. He started shouting that Lin Ye was only capable of sneak attacks and tricks, and that he would never have the courage to fight him face to face. Lin Ye wasn't going to fall for his provocations, but he was already planning to do so. This time, he was going to launch the biggest attack that he had ever done before. Stabbing his staff into the ground, Lin Ye activated his reversal skill. A huge amount of energy began to gather at a single point. This was his response to the Goblin King and his subordinates, who were already trembling with fear by this time. They couldn't believe that an ordinary man had the power of their demon god. But it didn't matter now, for it was the end for them. Lin Ye was even a little sorry that it was over so quickly. A moment later, a huge beam of light rained down from the sky on the Goblin King's castle. The red energy began to mercilessly devour and destroy the castle and everyone inside. The Goblin King tried to resist to the last. However, he was completely powerless against this force. In the end, he fell to his knees exhausted, and his desire to fight disappeared without a trace. He couldn't believe that his life was coming to an end. By that time, his army had already been completely destroyed, for which Lin Ye was rewarded with 1,000 points of experience. Not wanting to continue listening to the monologue of the Goblin King, who was one step away from death, he put him out of his pain with a single attack. The Goblin King's death was followed by a series of system messages. After gaining enough experience for killing the hidden boss, Lin Ye gained level 7. In addition, thanks to the luck buff, the treasure chest was upgraded to platinum level. The power of this ability was truly terrifying. The effect of luck was going to last for another 20 hours, giving him the opportunity to clear a few more dungeons. As expected, some very valuable rewards dropped out of the platinum chest. Among them were 15 points of attributes, the skill book Holy Light of platinum level, which was very effective against undead and demonic creatures. Flame Pot, which dealt 300 points of damage when it hit an enemy. The next item was Blink Stone. When equipped, it increased all attributes by 20 points and allowed blinking 10 meters in a specified direction. Next was the Glory of the Stars skill book, which when consumed a certain amount of mana, summoned the Glory of the Stars, which shone within a radius of 20 meters and restored health to all allies, as well as applying 5-second immunity to damage. And finally, the last item was the Sandstorm Bow. Lin Ye was very pleased with the reward he received, and especially the skill book Glory of the Stars. After using the Heaven and Earth reversal, he received a mass attack with a large range, as well as the effect of reducing damage immunity, which further increased the damage. It was indeed a very strong skill of strategic importance. As for the Holy Light skill, our hero decided to sell it. That one wasn't very impressive, and besides, you couldn't have too many skills after all. Points of attributes Lin Ye without a second thought invested in intelligence. After leaving the dungeon, Lin Ye couldn't help but notice that this dungeon was another step towards his goal. Thanks to the Glory of the Stars, all of his attributes had been raised by 20 points. For beginners, this level of strength was unimaginable. Lin Ye's musings were suddenly interrupted by the disgruntled voice of Mumu, who said that she was finally able to find him. Playing dumb, our hero asked if she had also come to pass the dungeon. However, Mumu was not to be fooled, but although she was unhappy with his impudent behavior, there was nothing to do. She asked if he had really managed to clear the nightmare-level dungeon. Lin Ye had no choice but to confirm her words. As it turned out, Mumu had always wanted to try to clear this dungeon as well. Lin Ye didn't discourage her and offered to do it together. Mumu was still a little scared, but she was determined. Besides, she had the mysterious Lin Ye with her, who had already succeeded. While they were still at the entrance, a car was parked nearby. After going through several teleportation points, Xiaofeng was finally able to find Lin Ye. Looking at him, Xiaofeng felt an increasing desire to teach him a lesson. This time he didn't arrive alone. There was another person in the car. Xiaofeng ordered him to go and deal with him. But despite all his orders, he refused to do so. That guy seemed very scary to him, and a handsome man like him could never do it. Xiaofeng had already anticipated that this would happen and had prepared for it in advance. What had happened then was not going to happen again. This time, he was sure he would win. Thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments if Lin Ye can kick that bastard's ass. Just like after the last dungeon completion, Lin Ye decided to post his strategy on the forum. This time, the price for the guide was 8,000 alliance coins. Yes, it was higher than last time, but also the level of the dungeon was much more difficult. Usually nightmare dungeons were afraid to pass at all, and here was a guide to get S rank. Lin Ye already had a certain level of reputation on the forum thanks to the last successful guide. But still, the others had a hard time believing it all. They had many doubts and questions. Still, the bravest ones were going to try it themselves right now. Meanwhile, the forum also received information from one of the users, who learned that Lin Ye from Jiangcheng Professional College, a test student of this session. He turned out to be the previously rumored strongest test student, the one who sold the great hunting sword, and the one who solo cleared the refreshed SSS rank of the human copy. As proof, he posted a photo of our hero near the dungeons. Other users immediately began to discuss this news, questioning it and pointing out the lack of evidence and reliable facts that would confirm it all. Among them were even Lin Ye's classmates who said that he had sold the Shadow Dagger, but also that he had very mediocre grades. So it probably wasn't him. Although for Lin Ye all their yapping was indifferent. The main thing was that his guide started to be bought, and the notifications of receiving the next 8,000 coins came one after another. He also received requests to buy Holy Light for 100,000 alliance coins, and to buy Sandstorm Bow for 150,000 alliance coins. Finally, after a few hours, he received a notification from the bank that 5,000 had been deposited into his account, and he now had a total of 15,000 alliance coins. Although it was quite a lot, it was actually less than he had expected. He had to wonder, what was the reason for this? Could it be because the strategy didn't include the last Goblin King's no-damage clearance? Although no one but he himself could do it anyway. It seemed that no one dared to buy such a complicated strategy. In the end, he came to the conclusion that none of that matters, since the nightmare level of the dungeon still had a qualitative breakthrough for his own equipment and data. Making money was secondary. The buff of the Koi effect was to last another 15 hours. This was enough time to rest and stretch a bit, and then proceed to the next dungeon. Lin Ye decided to go for a jog, and then thanks to his skill to turn all the fatigue into energy and rest. This way he would simultaneously save time, rest, and enhance his physical fitness. The night waterfront was especially good for jogging. Lin Ye took advantage of this opportunity and ran like crazy, attracting the attention of passers-by. Suddenly, the sound of a car was heard behind him. Lin Ye immediately turned around. Right in front of him, a sports car driven by Xiaofeng stopped. He wanted to pretend that it was a coincidence that they met and offered to give Lin Ye a ride home. But our hero, of course, saw through this scoundrel's plans and asked if Zhao Qihang had not made it clear to him that he should not provoke him. Our hero didn't want to cause trouble, but that didn't mean he was afraid of it. Of course, Xiaofeng didn't like that Lin Ye mentioned his brother. Finally, a hired bandit intervened in the conversation and said that Xiaofeng wanted to have a duel with our hero, and if he doesn't agree, he may not even think that his family will have peace. From this, Lin Ye realized that they had found his address. It was expected. Lin Ye decided to agree, but warned that he hoped Xiaofeng would be a man and not cry and ask for help if he couldn't win. Of course, such statements infuriated Xiaofeng. He immediately grabbed his pocket bandit and yelled at him not to even dare move. This would be a one-on-one fight. The equipment he is wearing is so expensive that Lin Ye won't be able to earn such a thing in his entire life. In this case, he simply cannot lose. Watching this spectacle, Lin Ye realized that Xiaofeng had found more than one assistant, and this was a tentative sign. As it was, Xiaofeng quietly whispered to his bandit to act according to their original plan. While they were whispering, they didn't even notice that Lin Ye had already gotten into the car and was hurrying them along. He didn't care how many they were, even if they all came at once. He was busy and didn't want to waste time. Xiaofeng just advised our hero to wait for a while, and he'll regret this in a moment. Xiaofeng thought his plan would work and didn't even realize that in fact he was already a victim, and our hero planned to make him crawl on the ground like a dog, and make his life worse than death. Soon they drove out of town. When they arrived at the planned location, silhouettes of hired bandits showed up all around. Xiaofeng clearly didn't spare any money to gather them all here. Lin Ye laughingly noted how many people they had gathered here and asked them to hurry up and decide whether it would be one-on-one or a brawl. Xiaofeng replied that it was one-on-one. But with one thing, their group will take Lin Ye one by one. With that, Xiaofeng pulled out a diamond-level wind shadow sword. Well, to our hero, there was no difference. This was not the reaction Xiaofeng was expecting, but he still sent all his bandits to attack confident of his victory. Lin Ye was already preparing his skill to meet them properly. He easily dodged the first strike, making them wonder at his agility. Lin Ye was so fast that the ordinary bandits didn't even have time to reach him, but their leader was stronger and decided to use his assault/skill to stop our hero. He calculated everything and attacked ahead of Lin Ye's trajectory. But one thing he did not take into account, Lin Ye still had a major trump card up his sleeve: the reversal of heaven and earth. When the attack of the bandit leader hit Lin Ye, he happily declared that our hero is just a wet behind the ears kid, and nothing more. However, as soon as Lin Ye's skill was triggered, the leader's fun evaporated and he almost fell from the blow. Coughing up blood, he couldn't understand what had gone wrong. And what had this kid done? He could clearly see that there had been no attack. Such a bizarre ability. It shattered the defense of the gold-level gear in an instant. But in front of his gang, he wanted to appear cool. So he stood up and said that he was fine despite this kid's tricks. Isn't Lin Ye just a priest? They had an advantage in numbers and quality of gear, so he suggested that they all attack him together at once. They immediately rushed to attack, each of them going to use their strongest skill. By doing so, they had signed their death sentence. Lin Ye immediately used the reversal of All-Star's radiance, and the Blood Priest's red chains caused all of them to fall in heaven and earth hell. No one was spared by the Blood Priest. Everyone got the effect of their skill attack back. It was enough to neutralize them all. The bandit leader didn't understand how it was possible. They were all killed in an instant. It seemed like everything had been resolved, but from behind came the voice of Xiaofeng, who smugly stated that it was expected and relying on people was not as good as relying on money. His equipment was bought at the auction for tens of millions, after all. It was diamond level and surpassed all ranks. This suit increased all attributes by 100. The bandit leader was shocked. He had heard about that auction for the rich. The entrance fee alone was worth 100 million. Such financial strength was indeed worthy of the sole heir of the Huang Corporation. That suit, without a doubt, must be a legendary rare treasure. Xiaofeng was confident that this time with this kind of gear he would make Lin Ye kneel completely.